Do you see an agency apocalypse with AI?
Does AI make agencies irrelevant? And I think the answer is absolutely no. Clients are still clients. They lean on agencies so heavily because they have a really hard time attracting the talent and the diversity of thought that is required to help them execute. I think there's never been a time where agencies have an opportunity to lean in.
There's a lot of M&A happening within the industry. What do you think AI is going to do for the industry?
I've described this as sort of a tale of two cities. Large-scaled independents right now are kind of in a tough spot, but that is actually good news because in the lower middle market is where we're seeing a lot of the activity. And I think it's going to be like that for the next 12 to 18 months. I think the future, Laura, the human to agent ratio, we're at a point where I can see one human managing 5 agents. Like that is, I think, one, great productivity for your organization, and 2, something that will really excite the client.
Hi, I'm Laura Meyer, and I am the founder and CEO of Envision Horizons. And this is another episode of On the Horizons. And I'm here with another notorious podcaster, Christian. Good to see you.
It's great to be here, Laura. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to get your perspective of what you think is going to be happening in the agency space.
Ooh, market perspective.
Market perspective.
Let's do it.
I mean, as the host of the Inorganic podcast, what are you seeing in the market? There's a lot of M&A happening within the industry, and what do you think AI is going to do for the industry in general?
Well, big questions. Let's start.
I know I'm stacking it.
That's cool. Let's start with the first question. What is happening in the industry? I've described this as sort of a tale of two cities. Large-scaled independents right now are kind of in a tough spot at the moment because large deals are hard to do. And what I mean by that is deals that are over $100 million in enterprise value typically require debt as a part of the deal structure. And what we're seeing in the market is that private debt markets are under a lot of pressure. It used to be that healthy net debt was around 4.5, maybe 5 at the absolute most. We're in a market where it's more like 3 to 3.5 net debt, but a lot of our independent agency friends are above 4 right now. And so if you're doing a consolidation play, it's hard to find someone who's going to give you really good terms on that debt. So on the bigger end of the market, like the plus 100 million, it's a little tight, but that is actually good news because in the lower middle market is where we're seeing a lot of the activity. When we think about Mountain Gate and all of its recent M&A with Podian and the Harvest Group, what we're seeing is that lower middle market deal flow around PE-backed players who have the cash in the bank. They're not using a lot of debt. They're using investor capital to consolidate. And they're consolidating in fragmented verticals. So if we use the Podian as an example, what we saw was the acquisition of Commerce Canal, which was a marketplace agency. We saw the acquisition of Emerge, a UK-based retail media agency specialized in that ecosystem. And then we also saw the acquisition of AdAdvanced, a regional player that had some tech-forward capabilities. I call that sort of consolidation of fragmented pieces into the sum of the bigger parts. And I can predict that for the rest of this year, we're going to see more and more deals that look like that. Again, like Harvest Group and Cartograph, then we're going to see of big deals. And I think it's going to be like that for the next 12 to 18 months, while debt markets and a lot of the macro conditions, the war and sort of other inflationary factors are kind of making big debt deals harder to do. So that's, I think, the answer to your first question.
And I want to dig into what's happening in the landscape too. So after these roll-ups, like it's very exciting for the founders and those who are stakeholders in these acquisitions. But then what? You know, what's happening with the strategics? Is it once you have this big roll-up, is the play another private equity group? Is there this merging of software and agency coming together? Or is still the long-term M&A playbook like, let's go to the big four?
I don't think the big four is a clear path. I think, so let's start with the meta question you're asking, which is the big four, the consolidator? I'm just not sure. if WPP is acquired by PE, which there's been rumors that it's going to happen, then perhaps WPP does some more, M&A to kind of fill in its pieces. I think principally they're going to be very media buying focused in their M&A because it's the right place to be investing. For the others, I think IPG and Omnicom are very busy integrating, and if anything, we're going to see more divestitures than we are going to see acquisitions from them. And I think Publicis is probably similar. So then who are going to be the buyers? I think we're probably going to see some buyers we didn't expect. Think of KKR, think Apollo, think BlackRock potentially entering what is to them a very exciting place to be. And again, they're sitting on a lot of dry powder. So I think those are probably the new acquirers that we haven't seen active in the market yet. You asked another question, which is a good one, which is what becomes of Apodian after its hold period with Mountain Gate. And I think what they're building is, to your point, a software and a services platform that's going to be very attractive and interesting. What for potentially an Accenture or, again, a PE buyer that we haven't thought of, we haven't seen active in the space yet. And so for those founders, I think you're asking the underlying question, because you're a founder, is, hey, I'm going to get an earnout. I'm going to get some role. I want to know what that role is going to be worth. I think that role is well planted in a platform that you can really believe in, because the next acquirer is going to be a very interesting and an exciting acquirer.
Do you think there's an appetite for IPOs?
I think it's hard right now.
The public markets don't like services.
Yeah, the public markets don't like services, but I think we're in an era where it's kind of like an unknown, right? Like, we're in a SaaS apocalypse. SaaS companies are like having really difficult time with valuations. If you're a SaaS company coming to market right now and you want to even get a 5 or a 6 multiple, you better have greater than 30% EBITDA margins. You better have a substantial amount of cash in the bank, which is very attractive to strategic buyers or even PE buyers. You need to have a few things lined up to be there, because what you probably don't have is the growth. The last 2 years for software growth have not been great. A lot of companies that really had a right to win are sub 15, even sub 10% growth. So what does all that mean? It's like, well, a lot of the things that investors are talking about is the defensible businesses of the future are part SaaS and part tech. I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Is like, so does that create a platform for an IPO? We haven't yet seen that kind of demonstrated yet. I mean, we can point at the established players in the market, like an Accenture, but they're not really software led yet. We know that Accenture has set aside $3 billion for M&A. They've spent $1 billion on faculty, which is AI tech and a little bit of services. So now let's see what they do with the other $2 billion, and then let's see what copycats show up after that.
What I always just think about is, after you've traded with PE 2 or 3 times, then what? And it feels like we haven't really seen, like, whether you're looking at Power or Tenuity, like, then what?
Yeah.
Is it IPO? Is it the strategic? Or is there opportunity in the market for the disruption of the big four and these larger independents to become leaders?
I think it's hard to believe that the big four get disrupted.
Okay.
They're pretty scaled.
Too big to fail.
They're just, there's just a lot going on, and there's too much smart money behind them. I mean, let's like WPP for an example. Like, WPP is having a hard time. They've got a new CEO. She didn't show up to the most recently quarterly call, and I actually give her credit for sitting it out, because what are you going to do? Talk about stuff that really wasn't in your hands and within your control. You're focused on your plan ahead and what you're doing, and why signal to the market what is happening. There are very smart people behind these businesses. Their market capitalization is actually less than some of the assets that they hold. Just look at Kantar, is like worth several $1 billion. They could sell Kantar anytime they want and easily even net the debt of that business, have a substantial amount of cash on balance sheet. So I think it's hard to believe that the big ones sort of fail. Maybe we see an emergent of another big player, but I go back to that, hint of there's a lot of interest amongst the KKR and the Apollos of the world to enter into this space. And so what is the possibility that they might combine 2 or 3 of the big ones to create kind of that next competitor? And I think that around media, retail media buying, that's really going to be kind of where the capital concentration focuses.
And so earlier you mentioned the software apocalypse.
Yeah.
PE is seemingly looking at professional services more because they need to make up for what SaaS companies are in their portfolio.
Yeah.
But do you see an agency apocalypse with AI and the tactical work getting automated? Like, where is the true value that agencies can bring forth as AI becomes more mature?
Let's break that a question apart into two pieces. I think the first question is, does AI make agencies irrelevant? And I think the answer is absolutely no. Absolutely no, because let's just be real, whether you're B2B or B2C client facing, clients are still clients. They lean on agencies so heavily for hands-on keyboard. One, because they have a really hard time attracting the talent and the diversity of thought that is required to help them execute. So I think they're going to be more likely looking to agency partners that are AI-led and have the answers to the questions that they need to get answered, and how they can really leverage AI in their business. So it's like, what was 5 years ago is a question from a brand on, I really don't know how to execute retail media. The new question is, I really don't know how to fully take advantage of AI's capabilities to lean into, let's talk about diversity of content to reach a broader set of customers in a way that's more relevant to them. I think there's never been a time where agencies have an opportunity to lean in. But on the other side of that is probably the agencies that show up and can really do it, and the agencies that don't. And I think the difference maker is, if you're an agency that's trying to solve a billion problems, like 10 problems at a time with AI, and you're not focused and you're not really working back from a real clear, distinct problem set that maps to what your client cares about, you probably are setting yourself up for failure. The ones that are setting themselves up for success with AI are ones that are really focused on a very narrow use case that is clearly translatable value to their clients. And they're iterating and building on that rather than trying to play peanut butter and do everything.
Yeah. A question I've been thinking about for my own business is, with the evolution of AI, is there actually a bigger opportunity in the lower market? So more SMB, or even like the really early stage businesses, because conversations I've had is, the big enterprise brands, like, they're building out their own AI solutions, where a business that, say, does 75 million a year, they're not going to have that internal workforce to build out those solutions. Are you seeing anything in the market that points that way? Or do you still think, at least in the M&A world, the more enterprise logos you have actually makes your business more desirable?
Yeah, I mean, the way I answer that is, for those of us who've spent a material amount of time with AI, the one thing, like whether it's Claude, pick your tool of choice. I use a little Claude, I use a little OpenClaw, your wrapper, OpenAI. I use Lovable. Here's the learning is, it takes a lot of time to just sit down and focus on what is the problem you want to solve, iterating on that problem and getting it right. And I think what the large enterprises have working not in their favor is they put out mandates, and a few of our friends in the commerce ecosystem have put out mandates like every executive VP and above needs to be using an agent, and then not saying for what? in service of what purpose?
Just check a box.
Yeah, just you need to be using an agent. Go use an agent. That is really setting a lot of people up for failure, because there's just no clear point on what is the problem that you're trying to solve. And so I think the earlier point that you were making is actually the astute point. Is if you are a 50 or 100 person business right now that wants to help others succeed, you're in such a great position. You have a small workforce. You can align everyone around a common problem, a common use case that everyone can align around. And I want to distinct the difference between two things, which is your workforce should be empowered to get their work done with the tools that are relevant. If it's Perplexity and Claude, pick it. Don't trap your team around the tool set. Let them sort of figure out how to get their work done with the tools that are available to them. You probably need to give them a budget. Yeah. You're not trying to token max, especially in the agency business. But when it comes to serving a specific client problem, I think then the work is of the executive to say, I feel most comfortable that Claude can solve this problem. We're going to align around this use case and this deliverable and this purpose with this model, with this wrapper, and then go get them. And if you're able to do that successfully, you're probably at this point in time, as we're talking right now, in the top 10 to 15% of the population that's experimenting with AI. So I think large corporation challenged just because of the effect of like trying to make change in a large workforce, having a small team, and you're a reasonably sized company, but a small team still, you've got a lot of opportunity, Laura, amongst to really help your clients, but also to get ahead of the competition.
Well, and again, what we keep thinking about is, do we build agents that we essentially lease out to organizations that are specific to our expertise? Or is it even helping them build their custom agents? Because we're very deep into this. I'm fortunate that my husband is my CTO.
Yeah.
So I joke that I get what I want when I want it. and our Saturdays are watching children and playing with Claude. And he built a new tool for our organization on Sunday that we rolled out on Monday and is being beta tested this week. So I think that's also what's really exciting is the speed of production. But you're right, the adoption is the hardest part.
It is hard.
And to me, it's like a classic business problem. I'm sure there's like a Harvard Business School study on it of like the first 90% of a project is actually the easy part. Yeah. It's the last 10% of getting it right, troubleshooting it, and making sure people actually use it.
I was having a conversation in one of my recent podcasts with Scott Wingo, who's a really successful founder and CEO. And he said it, I think, in the crispest way possible, which is the scary thing about AI is like how clearly can you define the problem you're trying to solve in the prompt? The agent is highly dependent on, agent MD and, Soul MD and like sort of who it is, the job that it needs to do, and the outcomes that it needs to deliver. And the narrower and clearer you are in describing that, the better it is. And I think you made another good point earlier about, building agents and renting them out to clients. Like, these are businesses. There are businesses out there that are out training on jobs to augment people or to replace people. I just interviewed Everworker's head of marketing. They're actually building an SEO agent. They'll rent it to you for $6,000 a year. Here's your SEO agent. Yeah. I think the future, Laura, especially for businesses like yours, is probably thinking in terms of the human to agent ratio. Is it 1 Laura to 5 agents? And the specific jobs that they're doing, and your job is less about doing the frontline tactical work, but more just tweaking the agents and making sure that they kind of stay on task, and when they need help, you kind of push the prompt along. So is it a 1 to 5 or a 1 to 10 ratio? I think we're at a point where I can see 1 human managing 5 agents, and I think if you can get those agents to be rentable and in service of like media planning or help me orchestrate, the MBR narrative for this client, looking at all the data that's coming out of their campaigns and all the work that's done and all the Slack messages in their Slack channel. Like, that is, I think, 1, great productivity for your organization, and 2, something that will really excite the client.
And do you think the agent adoption is going to drive price compression for the agency world? Or do you think it will allow businesses to just deliver more and bring even more value to the client?
Yeah, I mean, I love your perspective, actually. I mean, I think it's probably the latter, but how are you seeing it work in real time in your business yourself?
I mean, we're going after both angles, candidly. We, like most agencies, right there, we have 3 different levels of service that we sell in. Yeah. And I, as an entrepreneur, I want to have a more accessible price point. Yeah. And so we're thinking about ways to use AI to bring that accessible price point to market. Because when I look at my lead flow, because we do a lot of marketing, we get a lot of leads coming through our website, 75% of what comes through our website, we can't service in our current model. And so as the bleeding heart founder of like, I still really want to help them. Yeah. I want to find a solution there because I can't feasibly service that with the infrastructure I have that's, servicing businesses that do 50 million a year on Amazon. Like that's just not compatible. So how can we give more insights, more data, and honestly more delivery? Like, instead of updating creative on a product detail page once a quarter, with AI, the consumption of that could be weekly, it could be daily, it could be real time. But then the fundamentals of how to do Amazon properly, which we have 9 years of logging SOPs and we have our trainual and all of that, we're actually training our own model on. So we've developed our own LLM. We have finally gotten rid of its amnesia, so now it's building true memory.
Yeah.
And it's looking at the client Slack channels, the email, the transcripts from the calls, all of our trainings, all of our documentation. And we're thinking about, well, how could we lease that out to a business that maybe they only do $5 million a year? Like they're getting their feet off the ground, but Amazon is a beast. It is a very hard channel.
It's a very volatile channel.
And so many early stage founders, they joke it's like their side project. They have to learn it to be able to get it off the ground. And so how could we enable them?
I know, just two founder podcasters here kind of riffing. I think like what you're describing in terms of variation of service model is I have to turn away 75% leads. What if I could take on 10% more of those leads with here's an offering for you. This offering is 50% agent driven. So here are the things you get. Here are the things you don't get. You get 25% of human client services coverage instead of 50%. But the agents are here working, and you have our intellect and our small language model, which is the Envision Horizons trained model platform, our knowledge, our context, our experience still being deployed to help you get to where you want to go. And we price it in a way that's attainable for that group. And the more you can iterate, maybe the more leads you can service, the more interesting you make the business.
And, the bigger agencies, they don't want that business in many ways, right? It feels like a lot of businesses right now, or agencies, I should clarify, they're all focused on mid-market. You talk to a lot of agency owners. Oh, we're trying to go up funnel. We're really focused.
Enterprise.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's great. I love that segment too.
Yeah. We all love it.
We all love it. But I think AI opens up a door to just make things more accessible.
I think you're describing what I think is a really important consideration for founders who are sitting in your chair right now, 50 to 150 person agencies, which is just having brutal clarity on your ICP. Let the buyer figure out how they want to value it. If you're brutally clear about your ICP and your unit economics, look great, you're building the right P&L, you're building the right team, you have a focused set of clients, let the strategic buyer do the rest. I think that will lead you to where you want to go in this current era of a lot of strategic interest in businesses in and around the 50 to 150 person range, up to about 8 to 10 million EBITDA.
This is why I keep you on speed dial.
And I'm happy to be on speed dial. I'm always happy to be a partner. I was a founder. I know what it's like to go through the journey. I've done it several times, and so I have a lot of respect for founders and the hard work that goes into building a business, preparing it for exit, and then knowing what it's like to close and wake up the next morning and be like, well, there's a little more money in the bank account, and I can take a breath of fresh air. But we are gluttons for punishment. We'll just do it again.
Absolutely. Bring the punishment. Well, and I always like to say that, it's about the curse of the ambitious. Yes. You're never content. Even after the exit, even after a big event, there's always more to aspire for.
There is. Thanks so much for having me. It's been really a great conversation.
Thank you so much for making the time.